Question and answer time.
That's right. Dr. Akhwale is still with us here in studio as we try to understand more of what this rollout means. A few questions have been coming in as we asked you to field them to Daktari. Let's take a look at a few of them here. This one coming in from Twitter. Engineer Lazaro asking, is there any measure in place to deal with the emergencies in case of mass drug resistance or negative reactions, side effects?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The government has put in measures, and the Ministry of Health has developed a system which we were testing today. We are calling it Chanjo Kenya. It's a digital platform which has modules, and where when you go to the facility where you'll be vaccinated, you will register there. So you'll give us your contacts, you'll give us your name and where you reside and the nearest place. And actually, immediately after vaccination, there will be an observation to see if there's any severe reaction. And even when you go home, we've also asked for the next of kin so that they can quickly report back to that facility. And every day, all the forms, that section of severe events, which will be filled up, will be channeled to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board in Kenya. So that we can monitor if there are any serious side effects that may be. But let me say that this is a vaccine now administered to hundreds of millions of people like in India. And really the issue of severe side effects is not so much. But we'll continue monitoring among our population.
Dr. Here's how skeptical we've become as Kenyans. Listen to K. Minabo. Now that the chair is talking about commercialization of the vaccine, at some point, how will they curb production of fake vaccine by unscrupulous entities and sell it to Kenyans?
Yeah, let me clarify this this point. The role of private sector in Kenya, I think people don't really understand. The first thing we need to know that 40% of childhood immunization, the vaccines that we give children, are actually administered through the private sector. The government does 60%. And private here, I mean mission hospitals and private hospitals. Now, the other thing we need to note is that there are vaccines in this country that are only available in the private sector. They are not even in government. For example, you look at a vaccine like the flu jab. When there are people who take flu jab, you don't get that in government. And what has happened is that the Pharmacy and Poisons Board has worked with the manufacturers, and they approve the storage of these vaccines. They actually approve where these vaccines are stored. They train the private sector, and the private sector then supplies to particular hospitals. So there is already an existing system of monitoring vaccines within the private sector. Now, the second thing that is going to happen is that all these vaccines will have batch numbers. The ones that come to government have specific batch numbers. The ones that will go to private sector will also have specific batch numbers. And there will be systems to monitor where each of these. In fact, the digital platform that has been developed by the Ministry of ICT will exactly be monitoring where each of these batches are being administered. And when it comes to the issue of quality, let me assure Kenyans that before any vaccine is imported, Pharmacy and Poisons Board does a lot assessment. You bring a small batch, they do the assessment to meet that it meets the quality, and they will only give you an import license once they certify that that vaccine has met the standards.
Right, but Daktari, I'm sure you can understand Kenyan skepticism because of something like the cancer scandal that happened recently, just in terms of transparency in this whole process.
Yeah, so for us, the digital system will be one that will be able to track from where the vaccines will be in the stores to the administration. And there will be continuous reports. In fact, I'm hoping by next week, such a time, we'll be telling you how many Kenyans have been vaccinated. I want Kenyans to get the confidence that the task force and the ministry's leadership has put in place measures to ensure that we'll have the security of these vaccines at every point. Immediately they arrive, and within the regional stores, that security will be provided.
Okay, Grace Odhiambo has a very interesting question, Dr. Ari. She asked Dr. Ari whether the vaccine can be administered to a COVID-19 positive person or one who has to be negative to be vaccinated. What's the answer to that?
So the issue of whether you are positive or not, we are going to have something known as the eligibility criteria. And one of the criteria is if you have tested COVID in the last 4 months, then at that point you will not be vaccinated. But that doesn't mean you will not be vaccinated in the 5th or 6th month after you tested positive. So to also just emphasize that having tested positive for COVID does not give you immunity. The studies have shown that there is reinfection. And a reinfection could be mild, or it could still come with severe disease. So you will still need to be vaccinated.
But if you're positive at the time that you want to go for vaccination, you have to wait 4 months. Is that what you're saying? Minimum is 4 months before?
Yes.
Oh.
So it's not a foolproof process, is what you're saying?
No, there is eligibility criteria, and there are conditions that are given so that when you present, let me actually qualify this one. Say, if you have fever, if you have a high temperature, you have COVID and you have a high fever, then you are excluded. Anybody who will have a high fever will not be vaccinated until the fever is controlled.